What's up, y'all? How y'all doing out there? I am Lee Black, and welcome to a Wednesday's edition of Real Talk for Real Men. It's called Real Talk. And tonight we have something special planned for you guys. If this is your first time joining us on Wednesdays, we actually have some serious dialogue. We try to keep the conversation, about something relevant, real. It's always going to be live, raw, and real. Real Talk for Real Men. You can find us under the TFG platform of shows on YouTube and Facebook. So tell your friends, like, subscribe, share. And we're under TFG Uncut and TFG Ratchet. And we've got a good doozy for you tonight, folks. So if this is your first time in joining us, we want active participation. I'm going to bring in the folks, bring in the family. We invite live comments in real time. And as always, an open seat here at Real Talk. First and foremost, let me bring in my co-host from Memphis. This is Tasha Mack, for y'all that may not know. What's up, McMack?
Oh, just here. I am
Yes,
just
yes,
here.
ma'am. Well, I'm glad to have you, baby, as always. I know you're going to bring something beautiful to the conversation, as you always do. Appreciate that. When I tell you guys we have some special guests lined up, I'm going to be bringing them in as they show up. But of course, the fam from Texas, Mr. Kenny. What's going on, brother Kenny?
Good Wednesday evening, beautiful black people. How you all doing?
We are doing fantastic. Glad to have you, my brother. How's life treating you today?
It's Wednesday, man. I'm ready to see Friday. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Understand completely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Well, guess what? Fam, I hope some of the rest of the family join. We on CP time, so black people are going to do what black people do. They're going to be filtering in like roaches and rats, but bring your ass on in here anyway. Having said that, I got Mr. TFG tonight on the show right now. This is Mr. Brenton Haynes joining us. What's up, sir?
What up, man?
Yes, sir.
It ain't Monday,
yes,
but we'll make it happen.
Yes, sir. Well,
What's up, kid?
You already know it's about to go down. Yes, sir. When you got the man himself, I am on TFG tonight with Brenton Haynes. So
yes, sir.
We're going to have some serious dialogue here. And another member of the family from the TFG Tonight family, Miss Devon herself, Miss Devon. What's up?
Oh,
Miss
man,
Devon?
the crew is in the house.
I didn't see something down there. What up, sir?
This is the TFG Tonight crew. How you doing, sweetheart?
I'm good. How y'all beautiful people?
We are doing fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Another member of the family is here. We got the Postons, and we got Mr. Bird himself. What's going on, Ghost? How you doing?
Okay.
What's going on, Mr. Bird?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
Fantastic. Glad to have you, my brother. I know at some point we'll see your wife, and so we're glad to have you. Most deaf. I got from New York City. This is sister herself, and she is not in prison tonight. What's up, sis? How you doing?
What's up, everybody?
That's Miss Sherry. You guys don't know. A lot of times, actually, we just see the top of her head, but she's in the house. I've got a couple of invited guests and probably some more to join as well. From Little Rock, Arkansas, I got my boy. My boy's in the house. Jay is in the house. What's going on, Little Rock?
What's going on, baby boy? How are you?
Yes, sir. We doing pretty good. Glad to have you, my brother. And I see you brought your wingman with you. I love it.
Everybody doing good? Going on.
We are doing fantastic. Fantastic. And then I got from, is it Baltimore? I got Treasure Lee in the house. What's going on, Miss Treasure? How you doing?
Good evening.
Wow, house tonight.
Oh, you gonna come in?
I'm from New York, not Baltimore.
Where you living now, baby? You in Virginia?
I live in DC, but I'm never gonna claim it. You can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the New York out the girl.
That's what's up. I feel you. We're glad to have you tonight. We expect big things from you. And at some point, you're going to drop that sexy veneer because we're going to get real tonight, baby. We're going to do it tonight. And absolutely. And the Real Estate Insider, I'm waiting on you to come through as well, Mr. Lamar. So we hope you bless us with your talents. I'm getting some feedback from somebody. I'm not sure who it is. So I'm don't be offended if I mute a couple people.
It's Jay.
Okay. So again,
you're getting feedback, yeah.
Okay. So if I'm muting you, don't worry about it. I'm going to open your mic back up when you have something to say. No worries about it. So absolutely. guys, what are we talking about tonight? Why did I assemble this dais of important people to me? Because we are going to talk about something that, unless you've been under a rock, something that is affecting all of us. How many of you have been following the shooting that happened in Alabama, where those kids were just sentenced today? I think it was 4 killed and 32 people injured. We're thinking about the Chicago incident that happened just recently, where those young people were wilding out ridiculously. We could go back to the Travis Scott incident that happened at Rolling a Mountain, that incident there. Right here in Atlanta, the curfew has been changed because of the behavior of young people. Right there in Memphis, there's some shit going on with the juvenile crimes happening with them stealing cars. And we're no longer talking about just teenagers. We're talking about 8, 10-year-olds. But the one that really has everybody talking, I'm going to let the video talk for itself. I'm going to share my screen with you. And if you have to have been under rock if you haven't been following this incident. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to pop off into our conversation. All right, so here we go. So thumbs up so everybody can see this. Let's check it out.
It started as an argument over a complicated cell
Yeah, I can
phone,
see it.
and it quickly escalated. The scuffle ended with principal teacher Xavier Steele, an unnamed student, on the ground. Steele's hands appear to be pressing down near the student's head, and the student screams. It's not clear why Steele took the student's phone.
The cell phones is got no place in class. And then you're going to go up there and jump on a teacher or fight a teacher.
I'm going to stop it right there, folks, because for the purposes of what we need, that's all needed to be seen. Here was an incident where, again, we don't know what precipitated the event, where the teacher took the young girl's phone and it led to a fight. Guess what, though? This is not even all that uncommon. It's happening in classrooms everywhere, USA. And there are a lot of people divided on the side of the issue in terms of who's right, who's wrong. In our Saturday show, in the midst of us having some fun, it led to an interesting conversation about corporal punishment, about how we feel about it. So I wanted to open up this and have that real conversation. And there's Mr. TFG himself, Mr. Lamar. What's going on, my brother?
Not much. This kid just hanging.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for blessing us. And you're right on time. So I wanted to have this conversation about discipline, about parenting, about, where we stand with this. And so, appropriately enough, to beat or not to beat, that is the question. And I'm going to put that question to each and every last one of you, because I want to take a quick parenting poll, and I want to go around. And what I want you to describe, and that's why I didn't purposely introduce anybody specifically, because I want you to do it yourself. Now, I can't work the phone to pull you all up in big screen yet, so I ain't got that efficient at it. So you guys watching, you'll just have to see us like this. But I'm going to go around the panel, and what I want you to tell me, just simply, where you stand on corporal punishment. Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you do it in your own home? And did you experience it yourself? And so I'm literally going to go around the room as I see you on my screen. So I'm going to start with you, Brother Brenton. Tell us, where do you stand on this issue?
Well, I do believe in corporal punishment. I also believe that it should be age appropriate. Like at a point, like my son is 6'3", 260. Like I'm not spanking him no more. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if I gotta put my hands on you, then we finna do some big boy stuff. Like I'm finna show you why I'm your daddy, right? So people, I will say this, I'm a recovering anger management recipient, shut up. I got an amen crowd over here. But I do know that we can abuse our authority as parents.
Okay,
And
I'm gonna stop you right there because I don't want you to go too far in the weeds.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna get to defending our stance, but for these purposes, you know, you're a parent, you believe in corporal punishment, you know, you kind of you say it's age appropriate. Were you actually beat, spanked?
Not really. Like I did get whoopings, but I wasn't beat like that. Like when nobody beat me with no bats.
So when you say whipping, are we talking about just the belt?
Yeah, I got whipped with a belt.
And that was the extent for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And stop right there.
Yep.
Lamar, coming to you next.
Mm-hmm.
Do you stand for corporal punishment? Do you practice it in your home? And were you actually a victim of spankings, whippings, whatever you want to call it?
I'm not a fan of it. I do agree somewhat with what Brenton said, that it's age appropriate. I feel like just like with small dogs, toddler understands a couple of taps versus a big kid getting beat with a belt or extension cord or a bat or a house shoe or whatever they can get their hands on. I don't think that does anything. I was whooped a little bit more so with the hand versus with a belt. I didn't get a whole lot of whoopings. My siblings did, cousins did, and I used it in my house a handful of times, but it was hand pops. It wasn't all out beatings.
Okay. Tasha, where do you stand?
Yes, I am all about some corporal punishment. I myself experienced corporal punishment, switches, extension cords, belts, wooden spoons, house shoes, hands, chopped to the throat, whatever it was. You know, just stay in line. So.
All right. So Brenton's doing the movement. Perfect.
That's a lot.
I'm coming to you, sis. We grew up in the same household. Where do you stand? Hold on. Sorry. Go ahead, sis. What are you saying?
I said, as you know, we got beat. We had extension cords, belts, and a hand and everything else. And yes, I believe in. My daughter wasn't that bad, but yeah, I fucked her up a couple of times. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back on out. Who they got next? Hannah, Bert. You know, and this is interesting because Hannah, I'm gonna start with you because we kind of on the last show. Where do you stand?
I believe in discipline. I do not believe in corporal punishment. And it was a lot to do with my upbringing. And I was beat a lot and literally for no reason because my stepfather would just get angry and beat me and my mom was at work or at school.
We're not going to let you go too deep in the woods right now.
Yeah, so I purposely don't believe in it, but I do believe that kids should be disciplined.
Okay. Bert, this is a newly married couple. Where do you stand on it, my brother?
Yeah, I believe in corporal punishment with my boys.
Okay, a little louder for me, Bert.
Okay,
we want to hear.
Yeah, I agree with corporal punishment. With my boys, it was situational. You know what I'm saying? And as far as with me, I didn't get beat a lot, but at the end of the day, for the things that I've done, I mean, I can even look back on it. I deserve to get my ass whooped.
Okay. Let me go to the next person. I'm trying to get around to them as I can to each and every person. Treasure, you know, where do you stand?
I believe in corporal punishment. Was I beat when I was a child? Yes, not by my mother. What was the other question?
Okay. So do you practice it in your home?
I do, but not with the belt or objects. My hands, real quick, box them up. My son is about 10 years old, so you're going to get these hands to the arms. If I could catch you with the belt, no, I don't usually bring up.
Okay, so your hand. Okay, back on out. Um, who do we got next in here? Let's go to Miss Devin Devine. What do you stand, Miss Devine?
Um, I definitely believe in corporal punishment. I believe it's age and the crime and the child appropriate. I disciplined all of my children differently based on how difficult they were or words versus I need to let you feel it. I did get beaten growing up, not really much as a young girl, mainly as a teenager, but yeah, I do
Now
believe.
you use the word beating. I want to give some clarifications to that. What type of beating are we? Because you said beatings.
Like not no turning you over on your butt and spankings. Like you got hit with a belt buckle, and then wherever it landed, that's where it got you.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Who we have left? We got Mr. Kenny and no, Mr. J. Come on, Jay. Are you on mute?
Yeah, you got to unmute it, Black.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
I believe in it. I am a product of it. It was all boys in my household, so we got it. And I practice it in my home with my boys and girls. So I'm still living, so I'm good.
Okay. All right. Mr. Kenny, bring us on home. What do you stand? Mr. Kenny? Okay.
We lost
I
him.
think it's discipline. I'm a
We're,
big believer in whooping. But yeah. Can you hear me?
it's going in and out. Your feed is going in and out.
Uh,
Yeah, it's going in and out real bad. So I'm now getting ready to go into the weeds while we wait on that. Charles says whooping yes, beating no. He says my daughter is 16, so no whoopings now, but definitely a loss of privileges. So now I
all
want.
right.
Okay, Kenny, you're back. Okay. While we're waiting on Kenny, I want now for somebody to go a little bit into the weeds and tell us a little bit more extensively why you feel the way you feel. I'm gonna start with you, Brother Lamb, because you told a compelling story and you had a really good reasoning as to why you feel the way you feel. So if you don't mind, share that with the group.
Yeah, I watched a cousin get beat on a regular basis by her dad in front of friends, family, in front of Charles. He would literally, my grandma would literally call him to beat her in front of everybody. She's probably turned out worse than all of us. I think she might be in jail right now. I think there's drugs involved. Turned out bad. I think that parents that take pride in beating them down and proving that they bad and all this kind of stuff. To me, that's insecurity within the parent, and they don't know how to manage their child or their anger or how to. I think they're misunderstanding the parent. If you can't control yourself and still get your child to respect you versus fear you. So that's my thing. I didn't get a lot of that, and I turned out fine. I'm fine. And and
Okay.
and but the people that I know that got that, they express themselves in that same way in their adult life, and they end up in jail.
Okay. And if it's okay, I want to share with
Right.
you before I leave you that you mentioned, Charles said it didn't help her, but you also mentioned Lamar how when you tell us about quickly the incident when you disciplined your daughter
Yeah.
and while for
Okay.
you
Yeah, she
it
was in maybe first grade or kindergarten. She was small, and I popped her a few times, and obviously too hard. We were walking to the car. I was taking her to school. She jumped in the back seat, and it was like ow when she was sitting down, and it broke my heart. It literally broke my heart because it was like what the heck, and that really kind of changed things for me too, because I was still trying to do what I was taught, but I still was I didn't do nowhere near as much as my family and parents and stuff did. But even the little pops that I was doing, I had to find another way to discipline my child. And I have some of the best behaved kids. There's 16 and 14 that I know. And that's not just because they mine. That's because even without whoopings, we can go in the mall and I say, sit there, don't move. They don't move because they respected me. They didn't fear me. They just respected me because I loved on them too. I know a lot of parents don't even tell their kids they love them or hug them and all this kind of stuff, but they beat the hell out of them. So yeah.
Okay. And okay. So now I love the fact that you mentioned you said that you're fine. Jay, I want to come to you. You mentioned you was the first one to say that you turned out just fine, and you a strong advocate also of corporal punishment. Expound on that a little bit.
Well, as I mentioned, I grew up in a household with all boys, and we were something to deal with. And so my mom and dad, they were pretty strict when it came to certain things. And the brunt of it was myself and my younger brother. The youngest one didn't get as much because he watched what happened to me, and I'm not gonna mention his name, my other brother. But we deserved it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we were constantly into things, and um, as a repercussion, that's what happened. And so I took that same. It's because of that, because of my parents being strict on me, because of those whoopings, they want to call it. It kept me in line. It's made me who I am today. Now I do agree with some of the other comments. It's every child is different. I have three girls and three boys. My youngest is 17, and I hadn't had to put my hands on him in quite some time. He's 17 now, and as brother Brenton said, if I put my hands on him now, I might hurt him because he's too big for that. However, and something I had an incident recently where I had to have a serious conversation with him. And when I say something, I mean it. And he had one job. His job is to go to school, make good grades, stay out of trouble, and make something out of himself. It's just that simple. I don't require very much. If you can't do it, then there's repercussions behind that. And so that applies to all my children. And believe it or not, I have a daughter who probably got the most discipline out of all of them. And she lives in Dallas right now, and I think she would probably tell you because of that, she's who she is today. So I'm a strong advocate of it. I do understand how times have changed. I heard Brother Lamar talk about some parents, they go overboard and they do it. I think he said as a sense of pride or something like that. If you're hitting your kids and you're taking your anger out of your kids because of something that's going on in your life, and that's wrong. You should discipline them out of love. At least that's how I was raised. That's how I discipline my kids. It's out of love just because I'd rather discipline you and keep you out of trouble than for you get them in the streets and either you end up in jail or you end up dead.
I'm curious to ask, in the discipline that you received, and these are physical whippings that you got, was there ever any resentment towards your parents who did it, and your children? Have they shared any resentment that they had towards you?
When I was younger, of course, you were young and you thinking that you know everything, and you're watching your friends and people you grew up with, and you think they just live their best life. And as I got older, I appreciated it. And I would say this. I tell you, a true blessing for me. If you ask that question, have any of my children ever came to me and talked about growing up? And I mentioned my daughter in Dallas. She has said to me on multiple occasions, "Daddy, I appreciate you. Thank you for raising me and the way you did." She actually said that to me because as a parent, there's not a. I mean, there are books out there, but truthfully speaking, every situation is different. Every household is different. Me and
Okay.
we raise our kids differently, but as a parent, sometimes you do wonder if what you're doing is right, if you're raising the right way, if you're doing the right thing, if you went overboard. And so having that conversation with her and some other children, I do feel like, at least I did the best I knew how to do and raise them so they could
Well,
remember.
and again, I think all parents would say that, so I definitely appreciate that. Hannah, I want you to tell your experience with it at this point, if you don't mind, and why you're such a strong advocate of not corporal punishment, if you don't mind. And just be prepared, Brenton, I'm coming to you next.
Okay. So, like I said before, I do believe in discipline. I do not gonna say I've never hit my kids. I just don't beat them, and I'll tell you a little bit because my mom, I did get beaten from my mom growing up. My mom was a social worker too. Um, my mom beat me the last time she beat me. I was had to be 10, and it wasn't with a belt. It was literally with a branch from a tree, not a switch, an actual branch to the point that I couldn't go to school for a week.
Okay.
And the reason why was because of a lie. So it wasn't even something I did.
Okay.
So my mom was fearful. So she didn't beat me again. But my stepfather used to be so angry for I to this day. I don't know why he was so angry with me. I never disrespected him. I call him dad, well, probably shouldn't have. Like I never was disrespectful, even though I had my own dad, because I was just raised different the way my mom raised me. So I never was disrespectful to the point that he would beat me. Then when my mom would come home, told my mom I did something that I didn't do, she would beat me to the fact that I couldn't even cry. Like it's hard now as my in my adult age sometimes for me to tap into my emotions because I always said as a child, if you hit me, I'm not going to cry because I'm not going to allow you to get that satisfaction of seeing that you hurt me. So I literally built up a wall at a young age that I should not have. Now I do discipline my kids, especially my son. He will be 17. I don't beat him, but I might have to, one, two. But I don't believe in just beating them. I do have conversations. I do have punishments. I do take things away. I do believe that there should be some form of discipline. But my kids also are respectful. Like even everywhere they go, they're not disrespectful. And I'm not saying I put that fear in them, but they do have a level of respect to know like I'm not going to play with you. I don't have to beat you, but
Okay.
don't
Okay.
play with
I'm
me.
gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there with again because we're gonna get into that part of it. Brenton, in a kind of short way, tell us, why, which where you was going with how you feel about corporal punishment, and you said you're kind of advocate of it to a degree.
Sure. Yeah. So I haven't. My youngest son is 8, and my kids, the older ones, they tell him how lucky he is because I'm not who I used to be. Because I do understand, and just real quick, we when we feel like we don't have control, what we do is we use aggression. I've had to learn over time because my children are older. I have to be more intellectual instead of trying to be aggressive towards my children. I do know when we used to make the statement, this hurts me more than it hurts you, because we don't want to see our children hurt. But we didn't know how to get our kids to stop acting like they're grown one day and acting like they kids another day. Hello. So
Okay.
that's my issue. Like I couldn't control that in times past because it was little. But as I got older, I can reason with my kids. I can be logical. I couldn't do that then, but I've learned how to do better now. So that's for me why I don't have to put my hands on them now.
Okay. I want to go to a couple of my ladies on the panel, and I'm going to start with you, Sister Devin. I know on the show TFT tonight, I think you and I share some of the common views when it comes to that. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit your parenting situation and why you feel the way you do.
Well, I have three kids, and they are three totally different people. My youngest child, I literally cannot remember spanking her. She claims I did. I believe her. Maybe she was small because I don't remember it. My middle child, I remember only really getting onto her as a teenager because she fucked up to me one time. We don't play them games. Um, and my son, I turned into Rocky on him. I'm not gonna lie, but I was a woman, a single mother. Even when I was a married single mother. Think about that for me.
Okay.
And so it was all on me. And once he got to a point where he was taller than me, stronger than me, bigger than me, you know what I'm saying? I had to let him know you're not going to. It was almost like he was trying to invoke fear in me of him to get his way. But even say things like, if you let me do what I want to do, we wouldn't have these problems. and ain't nobody running my household but me. So he got them hands quite a bit more often than my girls did. Because once my other one learned that she couldn't hook up to me, because at a certain point in your life, when you're my height, my size, I'm gonna treat you differently. And the youngest one, I think you saw how they were disciplined, and so she knew better, but she was also more respectful to where if she even disappointed me, she would cry out of her way to apologize and fix that behavior. So that's why I say discipline to me is on a spectrum and it's different for different kids. She didn't have that, she lacked the empathy and things like that, that he lacked the empathy and things like that that the other kids had. So I definitely believe in it, but I also don't believe in just straight up doing it out of anger. But you're also not gonna play with me in my house.
Okay. And for right now, just last quick question: what's the turnout? What's your relationship like with your children? Is there respect there? How in an overall sense, how would you say they've turned out? And do you think there's been a correlation between your views and how they turned out?
The girls, they've actually did the same, meaning they've thanked me for all I've done for them, how I disciplined them, and they appreciate that. My son, he just went left, so I don't even, it didn't even work for him. Like you know what I'm saying. And some people may say it's because he didn't have that presence, in his life growing up, and things like that. And I don't know. He at some point he found social media and friendships, and that's what kind of got him in his life, and he continued to go that. So it didn't even work for him because not only did I do that with him, let me also say that we also did counseling. We also put him in mentorship programs. We also put him in other programs and different things like that. Aside from just me disciplining him, I had a police officer spend hours with him to talk about
Okay.
repercussions of what he just still with him.
Okay.
But he respects me. I still see him on holidays and he buys Mother's Day gifts and things like that. But he's always been his own person and just did whatever he wanted.
Okay. Okay. Treasure, what's your experience?
I have two kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. So, like Devin said, it kind of, with me, it depends on my child. So, my daughter is very mild mannered, very respectful. All I have to do is say something and she follows suit. My son is more like me. So, he wants to tussle, he wants to get the last word. He takes me up here. And so with him, I have to meet him where he's at. So even now we're in therapy because I'm trying not to I want to stay away from hitting him because he's getting older. It's not effective. And I'm realizing that. So now I'm at the stage where I'm trying to identify other ways to kind of meet him where he's at and trying to get him to understand that, I'm just trying to make you be well-rounded and give you all the tools that you need to kind of succeed in this world. Um, like I mentioned, I wasn't hit by my mother per se, so she doesn't condone beating. I probably a handful of times. However, it was my relatives, my aunts, my grandfather's wife, everybody in the family, the village was the one that beat me. The switches, soaked the switch for 2 or 3 weeks, beat from the school to the 24th floor, you name it. But it's ironic my mother didn't do it. So
Okay.
I want to kind of break that cycle, like I said, because I noticed that it's not effective with everybody. However, my son knows, try me, be prepared. That's one
Okay.
thing I've made sure.
Okay. Get ready, folks. We're going to open it up to a couple of controversial topics here in a second, but I don't want to leave out my sister and Tasha. So, Sherry, tell us why you are a big advocate of whippings and how did you feel like your daughter turned out?
Well, as you know, we grew up and we always got beat. I mean, well, whoopings with belts and a extension cord. And as I grew my daughter, I only have one daughter. I grew her up, and she got maybe about 10 beatings within her, and up until she was about 14. And I think they was effective. She listened. I really didn't have too much problems out of her, and she's a real respectful girl. She did well in her life. She's going on her masters. And And that's basically, but I do think, kids should be, you know, chastised to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Now, if she would have been a bad kid, then I would have probably beat her up until she was about 18,
Okay.
but she
Now,
was a
when you
good
did
kid.
beat her, was this with hand, with belt, extension cord, what?
No, I would just hit her with a belt.
Okay, I got you. Okay, Tasha, round us out your experience. I know you're not a parent. Round us out with your experience with it and why you're an advocate of it.
Well, that's one of the main reasons why I'm not a parent is because that, it's so frowned upon now, is because it's so controversial, is because I would be sending my kids to schools or out away from me around kids who have no level of discipline, whose parents are trying to go so far to the other side of not doing anything that they just allow their kids just to run, just to do whatever. I do find it very interesting though for the parents on here. One thing that you all have said is that, like your kids are respectful. Of course they're respectful. They're respectful to you, but I would really like to see just not around family, just out in public, like if the feedback would be the same based on the different methods that you all, the various methods that you all use as far as discipline. But for me, I know it worked. I got my last whipping when I was 17 years old. And for me, corporal punishment, it's not to the extreme of beating, but when it's appropriate and it's quick, it's in that moment, and it's not something that is just built to me, how I would define it, not something that just goes over days at a time. And I do think that it's appropriate to use it in conjunction with other methods of discipline, such as like Charles said, I think he said that he removes the loss of privileges for a 16-year-old. Had the same thing too. Didn't stop me from getting my last whipping at 17.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Share a couple of thoughts. DJ says, I think it's levels to it. Our parents didn't know what they were doing. My mom was big and whooping, but my dad wasn't. As a grown man, I still fear my mom's. LOL. Charles says, I agree with Hannah. Gotta have a conversation. Our parents weren't talking to us unless we were getting a whooping. So I'm not going to put you guys in a situation where you shared your views and I hold mine in that, we don't do that here on Real Talk. I grew up in a household with no father figure. There was a man around at some point, but we didn't, for all intent and purposes, we didn't have a father, and my mom did beatings. We're not talking about paddling with hands. No, you got beat with extension cords. I think like somebody said with belt buckles, you got hit with broomsticks, you got a foot literally stumped on your neck. Having said that, and my mom didn't discriminate between the girls and the boys. I love everything she did, and I think she did a phenomenal job, and I thank her for it. I think for a single mom raising a family, it protected us. It provided us an example of not only discipline in the household and kept the chaos there, it gave us a healthy respect for the authority outside. Somebody's got a lot of something going on in the background. If you don't mind, can some of you guys mute? Somebody got a lot of stuff going on in the background. I don't want to single out. If somebody's cooking in the kitchen or something, do a little mute. Um, Back to what I was saying, so for me, I'm an advocate of it. I always will be. Now, like Tasha, I'm so grateful that I'm not a parent right now because of what I see. And I frankly blame parents more than I do blame children. When I see the chaos and discord, and the point that Tasha make is the one I want to get into as well, is because, yeah, you might be respectful here, but there's a reason why that shit is happening on the outside and kids are wilding out in malls. Um, you're not going to make me believe that gentle parenting and all of this talking to kids, and they're so respectful at home and then they get away from you. Something is seriously going wrong here. And I just believe, from my view, I blame parents. But before I go there, and this is why I say it's going to get controversial because I want you guys to speak your mind and stand on your principles 100%. We always have had one view, one undenied principle on Real Talk. We'll agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So I want you to stand behind that. And I want to even go to what the science has to say, because for the parents who are against it, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends healthy forms of discipline, such as positive reinforcement of appropriate behaviors, limit setting, redirecting, and setting future expectations. The APA recommends that parents do not use spanking, hitting, slapping, threatening, insulting, humiliating, or shaming. So now we've kind of gone through the dais. I want everybody to speak. You don't have speak your mind now. Based on that definition, and in many states, they've literally outlawed corporal punishment. I want some of you to tell me, if that's accurate and that's true, why the fuck are we having all these issues out of kids?
I think because people are not putting in the work to do all those things. It's hard to do all those things. And it's just as hard as it is, and I hate to equate kids to animals, but just like training a puppy, it takes forever. It takes a long time to keep reinforcing the same thing for the puppy before they get it. And that's the patience that it requires in order to get your kid to that place. I used to do that. To this day, if I do that, both my kids do this. I didn't do that on purpose, but that became my method of getting their attention. They do this right now at 16 and 14. And so it's just, I don't think people were patient enough to do what they need to do. And I think that stuff works. I think otherwise you create a whole lot of trauma that kids become adults and don't know how to deal with.
Okay.
Environmentally, I'll say it like this. At a time they used to want to restrict certain group of people if you didn't have a certain level of intelligence. They used to castrate you or make sure that you couldn't have kids. I understand the reasoning behind that, because I'm not saying I'm agreeing with that. I'm just saying, like, the problem is everybody raises their kids differently depending on how they were raised. This country was raised on beating people into submission. So, of course, our grandparents and our great-grandparents, they thought that was the appropriate way. And then, white folks didn't beat their kids like that because they were like, I don't want to race bait. But my whole point is that there's a reason why. So for instance, I say it like this. When my kids go from elementary to middle school to high school, you're putting more and more communities together. So in elementary, it's just the people in my neighborhood. Middle school, now you're getting a little more. And in high school, you're getting the east side, the south side. And so now you're getting all of these different people who a kid in a different neighborhood don't know about fights, but the kid on the south side do, and he come and two-piece you up real quick. It's like, what's going on? We'll never get this right. We just have to do better as we learn better. And I just think all of that comes into play. It's such a conundrum. And again, I've evolved. I used to do it. I still will if I need to, but I don't see the need because I have as Martin Luther King say, if you know better, I mean, like, you show your ignorance by the lack of intelligence because you say words that are offensive. So I've gotten better. So I know how to deal with my children better. But there are people that just don't care. They just, like you said, they just take out their anger out on people. So it's a lot here.
I respect so much of what you said, but in so many ways, I think some of it's a cop out. To say that because you thrust different kids together from different environments, that in of itself, is the reason why some of them are acting out. And it's not, again, putting the onus on the individual household. That's just my personal feelings.
Let me correct you there, because
and then, okay, hold on. I want to make one last point. Then I'm gonna let you can respond. But then to Lamar's point about showing that level of patience. So explain to me why there are so many kids who are raised in the best possible environments you can imagine. With every type of advantage you can think of, and they still go out and act a damn fool and commit some of the most heinous crimes. And so if that patience and all those things are still practiced, but there was no discipline, How do you correlate that? And go ahead, brother.
Yeah,
Brendan.
I want to make sure I maybe I misspoke. I'm not saying that the people who got involved in the situation, I'm saying they were raised different. So a kid that has never been physically touched before, but gets into an argument because they got a big mouth. Well, the other kid who argues, he say, "Well, we fight. We put our hands on each other."
Okay.
That's what I mean by
I got you.
bringing all of that together.
I
But
got
at the same time, now we're talking about DNA, and we're talking about formation of the human brain. Yeah,
I got you.
It's not going to be the same.
I got you. How many of you feel like I do then, though? So for those kids who've never gotten in a physical altercation, never been spanked, hitting, they've been gently parented to the extreme, and then these are the same kids that don't want to go to school because they feel like they're being bullied, and they want to kill themselves and things like that. So at some point, if we haven't exposed them, to your point, Brother Brenton, to have to some form of discipline, I think Jay said that, he'd rather it come from me, because my thing is nobody's going to love our kids like we're going to love our kids. Everybody on this dais might feel they have the greatest kids, they turned out great. When them kids hit the street and they're acting a different way, they're not seen in the same light as you're seeing. How do you explain that?
I feel like I think the love thing has to be explained. I think you can. I would dare to say there was some. I won't say that, but you can.
No! Don't do that! Don't do that!
I was gonna say something.
Hold on. Even fact, I think a lot of people is holding back. Say what the fuck that they speak it.
Well, I was gonna do what I do when I'm being funny. I was gonna say something super extreme that's probably too far, which was I would dare to say that some slaves love some of their slaves. Some slave owners love some of their slaves. I said that to say that you can love someone and still mistreat them, thinking under the auspices of love, beating the hell out of somebody. I'm sure my cousin dad loved her to death. That didn't mean he didn't beat her down to the ground to where she's beat up, bruised up all week. But as it relates to the point you made about folks that were not beaten, that go out and shoot up schools or what have you, I think discipline is still the key. I'm not opposed to discipline. I'm just opposed to proper discipline. I'm for proper discipline. There's kids that grew up in rich households and parents may not hit them, but they weren't parented. They were left in their rooms and able to do whatever they want. They didn't get disciplined. They didn't get things taken away. They were able to do what they want. They were able to say, "Shut up, mama," with no repercussions. "Shut up, dad." See, there was no discipline. I think there should be discipline.
Question for you, brother. Are there ever any circumstances under which you think physical punishment is appropriate? Can you think of any circumstances? I think about the video of the young boy, white guy. I don't think he's white. He kicks his 84-year-old grandmother over because she won't give him his phone back. Now, she got up and he kicked her ass over again. To your mind and your thinking, are there ever any circumstances under which an ass whooping is warranted?
I answer this way. If you're asking if there's ever a situation where ass whooping is going to help the situation and make them learn from it, if they're over 5 years old, no. If they're under 5 years old, yes.
Wow. Everybody agree with that?
Me beating down a 15-year-old or 16-year-old ain't making them learn from me beating them down. It's pissing them off. They're gonna be resentful towards me. They're gonna be mad and ready to puffing up. I don't feel like it's gonna make them be
so
a
to be clear. Person. So everybody thinks saw the video with a 15-year-old, he tore his mama's house up. This was a couple of months ago.
That's a mental issue.
I'm not. I could go down that rabbit hole I could go down that rabbit hole as well and say that we live in an age now where it's always a mental issue. That they got ADHD and this and that. But he very well could have a situation. But even in that circumstances, so a kid gets angry enough that he tears your fucking house up. He broke our commodes, our cabs, and everything. So from where you sit, that didn't warrant an ass whooping because he was over the threshold of 5 years old.
I think, how old was he again?
15.
15? I mean, you could whoop his ass, but what is it going to do?
So you're saying it wouldn't have been ass whoopings wouldn't have helped?
I won't even say that it wouldn't have happened if it was my house. That I wouldn't have did something physical. I wouldn't have beat him down, beat him to a pulp. But it would have been possibly something physical, but do I feel like it would have necessarily? It would have been me retaliating out of anger to prove a point to you that you may be mad and now I'll make you pay for it. It wouldn't have been any what's they called when you go to jail, you're supposed to get rehab. It wouldn't really be
Rehabilitation.
any rehabilitation out of that. I don't think. I don't see.
You don't think a lesson would have been learned in that sense? That, you know, like at that point, you don't even care about my house, where you live, your dwelling. You don't care about anything, but because I'm your parent, I'm supposed to not retaliate. I'm supposed to not be angry. That's unrealistic. At that point, I think that the message should be sent in such a way that you want to act like you don't live in this house. I'm gonna treat you like you don't live in this house. It should be swift.
And that does what? Like, so you think that there was one time is going to have a changing effect on this 15-year-old?
That would be a serious dose of reality, because that's how somebody on the street would deal with them. And I think that's what's wrong with the parenting now, is because it's like, I get it, it's your kids, you love them, you don't want to see them hurt. But I think that people have gone so far to, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I don't want them to resent me. That we've allowed such unrealistic expectations of what the world is going to be like. I do.
Well, I don't want to treat my kids like they would be treated on the street. And I feel like if you let your kid get to a point of 15 to where they feel comfortable and enough to be able to do that and know that they can get away with it, my kid would never do that ever, because I've started from the ground.
You can't say never.
No, I can't say it. They would never tear my house.
I hate this fucking feedback that I'm getting from somebody, because this conversation is just getting juicy. Oh my God!
Everybody mute, maybe.
I think what Jay finna say something. That's why he unmuted. But
okay, Jay, was that okay? You unmuted. And again, why the fuck everybody being polite? Speak up. Come on, please, y'all.
I just want to say this. If your child, if you let your child grow to 15 and they feel like they feel bold enough to do that to your house, that's very telling of the parenting for that 15 years.
I will only add that you don't think some ass whoopings along the way is what got it to that point. You don't think a few ass whoopings along the way, to your point, it would have never have got to that point if that person had a few ass whoopings along the way. But you're saying that once they hit the threshold over 5, you have to reason with another way. I respect it. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. Oh, Jay, you keep sitting up like you want to add something to it. And anybody else, please speak up. Join the conversation.
I want to say that I've had this conversation with multiple parents, and no disrespect, but a lot of the parents that say this would never happen in my house, my child would never, that's because they haven't encountered that particular child. I've done both things, and I use my son because he was the one that was the handful. I've done both things with my son. Like, after a while, I learned that put my hands on him didn't work. First of all, after a while, it just stopped working. He was a football player. He got hit by dudes that was 100. So I wouldn't hurt him. You know what I'm saying? So when I didn't do it, like, there was a time, because I lack emotion. I may need to go to counseling. I'm of age. I ain't going. I'm who I am. But I lack that softness and that emotional side that I should have. But one day I was just like fed up, and I just cried. You know what that child did? And I know somebody gonna tell me it was mental health. He laughed. He said, "You act like you so hard all the time. See, you just weak and blah 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 blah." He acted out more. He felt like at that point he was the man of my house and could run my house. So my child ended up leaving my household really early on. But what I wanted to make was 2 points. One, there's no handbook for raising a child. So no one knows how to perfectly raise a child without error. You know what I'm saying? And you can't pour from a cup that's empty. You know what I'm saying? I suck at math. I seed my way out of every math class. So you don't want me teaching you trigonometry or geometry because you're going to fail. You know what I'm saying? So if I don't know how to do all these things, and I don't have, let's say I don't have the village to kind of help me learn, then there's no way that I'm going to be able to parent a certain way. And another thing, it's me and 4 siblings, 5 of us in the household, all raised the same, all raised by the same person. We all turned out totally different ways. Some of us became decent citizens, got degreed up and everything. And some of us went far left, where I won't even tell their whole business. You know what I'm saying? I think that when you are born with a personality. Just like when people say you're born gay, I think some people are born with certain personalities, and no matter what you do to them, they're not gonna budge. I'm sure you got killers and people who beat women and stuff like that who were loved on by their parents, and they just still turned out to be trash ass people. There's some people are just trash ass people, and it is what it is. And you can do, like I say, I did everything. I did the counseling, I did mentoring, I called a cop to my house multiple times to sit at my table and talk for several hours to try a scare tactic, who literally told my son I could beat him with a bat and there ain't nothing nobody can do about it as long as I go less than killing him. And he says, and you better believe when you're out on the street, your mama can't protect you from us. I did everything. Didn't work. That was just his personality. Some people just fucked up, and there ain't no other way to say it.
I appreciate that.
And before Jay go, I'm gonna just say this for me. It's not we want answers. We want the right answer, but there is no right answer because it's about that's why you have to know your kids. Like I can't my daughter brings home her attitude that she gets from her white friends. I told you you don't have white parents, so you can't act like them because I'm going to respond differently than they do their parents. You don't say what to me. That just don't happen in my house. You just can't. So that's what I'm saying. So I can't. So if it worked for you with one kid, like Devin saying, like others saying, it may not work for the other kid. That's why you have to invest in your children. And again, it's so much that we could just talk about. But go ahead, Jay.
Well, I was going to simply say this. I definitely disagree with you, brother Lamar, when you say that that may not have done any good if that person would got his hands put on him. Because if you tell me anything in my house or my grandmother's house or hell my friend's house, you're gonna probably catch these hands. And I agree with so much that the panel has talked about in regards to children, raising children and parenting, and all children are not the same. In my opinion, what you hope for is you do your job as a parent. And when you have multiple children, you hoping that the values and the discipline that you handed out when they was growing up sustain them throughout their adult life to where they don't get killed or in jail. You may have that one child that, regardless of what you may do, as Ms. Devine pointed out, strays away. But if you could save the other three, then so be it. But I do believe in repercussions because life is not fair. And if a child don't understand that when you make certain decisions or certain indecisions that there are repercussions, then what do you expect to happen? So that was always my philosophy when I talk to my children. And I'm a proponent of corporal punishment because my father and my mother, when they handed that out, oftentimes they would come back and they would tell me why they did what they did. So it was out of love, as I mentioned earlier. It wasn't for any other reason but, son, if you continue down this path, this is where you're going to end up. And we don't want you ending up that way. And that's how I parented my children. But I think that's a lot of the problem in society, especially in America, is because, as someone mentioned earlier, now we want to blame everything. It's a mental issue, which I'm not. I do understand mental health is real, and that's something that needs to be addressed. But we have all these reasons why something happens. When the reality of it is, a lot of times it goes right back to what is happening or not happening at home. If we start there, I don't think we'll have as many issues that we have out in the streets with these kids doing the things that they're doing. And a lot of them don't have coping mechanisms because they have nobody at home to show them how to cope. And, we've talked about this before, Blue Black, about, when we were growing up. And when you fall down, things happen and knock you down in life. But if you stay down, that's your fault. Get up.
Well, can I say this? Can I say this? Like, if Lamar did his is the way he's right, I don't have an opinion about if it worked for Lamar. If Devin got it right 3 out of 4 times, 2 out of 3 times, all I would do is just take something from everybody. And I was like, well, let me try it on this one. Or let me try. Just don't be insane and keep doing the same thing that don't work. That's all. And just go take these panels that we having, listen to what people are saying, and say, well, maybe I should try it that way. Because no, I didn't beat all my kids, but again, I yell at some of them, and I don't yell at other ones because they sensitive. So okay, I just can't. I don't have an opinion for somebody if it's working for y'all, but I do have. If you want to hear what I got, because something ain't working, well then you just take what you want from it, and you don't. I just think that's just where we need to get to when we talk about this, because ain't nobody that's gonna be all the way right.
Right, for sure.
I'm gonna agree with you on
I
that.
don't know.
Go ahead,
I'm
Tasha.
sorry.
Go ahead, Tasha.
I was just going to say I would push back on that because I think by and large, could we all agree that in previous generations that they got it right a little bit more as far as discipline than what we are looking at now?
No, I don't.
I don't agree with that because we beat.
I do, and I do.
Okay. Yeah,
and I do.
Because I was going to say, just looking at society as a whole and just in general, just if we're comparing, we'll take 3 generations before us and, and just look at what it is now. So we'll take the Gen X, we'll take millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha and compare it to the ones that are occurring before. Each generation, of course, had different things going on, huge milestones, defining millennial moments, decades, different things like that. But by and large, I do think that the silent generation, the boomers, the baby boomers, I think that they got it right a lot better, and that they had a village that was more willing to help, because now based on just based off of what is out here and what the parenting styles now, I don't want to be part of your village. I don't want to, because I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't agree with your parenting styles because it is all over the place. There is no consistency anymore.
Well,
and
let's
and that's where I was going to go. I think what you said on its face value is true. And there's no denying that. I can look at each individual household and you've got it right. You've got it right. No, I don't have anything to say. But I think in some ways that's a part of a bigger problem. To me, is the fact that we've grown so much to the point that everybody is doing their own individual thing, to where it spawned all these multiple different styles of parenting: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, neglectful, gentle parenting. And so the point that Tasha made, I think, is a valid one. There was a time when, by and large, there was a greater buy-in from more people, in that there is a level of respectability and accountability that we required from young children that I don't see anymore. And while we want to talk about when we know better, do better, and I agree with that in principle, but you know what? To sit here and say that this generation is the most blessed generation on the face of the planet. And so we could talk about, I don't know all of the age groups or whatever, like Tasha, she knows them more than I do. But these same people who come from ancestors of slaves, poverty, segregation, don't sit here and tell me that these people didn't have problems. And then where men lie, women lie, the famous line by Jay-Z, the numbers don't lie. The amount of crime, violence, disrespect that we see coming from young people is greater now in this generation than it has ever been. There has to be a reason for that. And to your point, I think, yes, individually, we can sit in our own little silos and say, well, this is what works for me. But on a greater scale, I think that's a part of the problem, is that in each individual little home, everybody's getting to do their own thing. And that's why we've removed discipline from schools. We've removed it from the homes. We've moved it from churches. And so everybody's doing whatever the fuck they want to do. And also, so don't be in my business. And that same parenting style is, so I'm going to rule my household, and then I'm going to send my kid out to school and in this world, and don't you touch him, because you don't get to discipline him.
But Black, let's say it like this: Lamar's kids, like I know them, right? Compared to somebody else's kids who are more ghetto, and I'm using that term just for the type of behavior they are. When you put those kids together, that one kid is going to be more violent, like towards Lamar's kids, because Lamar's kids don't know what violence is like that. And that creates another problem, because if you bring your child into an environment, a high school, where they're going to be integrated with kids who fight every single day in their neighborhood, that's gonna incite bullying. That's gonna incite some
Here's where I'm gonna
issues.
disagree with you. Here's where I'm gonna push back on you a little bit on that. You know, there's some valid to that, absolutely, but I think it's disrespectful and dismissive to say that somebody from the ghetto environment that automatically means that they're going to naturally be more violent. No, in fact, I grew up in Harlem, New York, the heart of the ghetto. You know what? We grew up in a time when somebody talked about your mother, you talked about their fucking mother too. But that household that's being raised where Jay said it earlier, they have no coping skills, you know, that they're being raised in such a gentle way, they're not prepared. So I'm gonna say it again. I don't blame that kid. I blame the parent. I blame the parent.
But what the validating point I'm making about those kids coming in from the violent area of the neighborhood versus the other kids, what I'm saying is that it creates. I need my kids to have balance. Like, I want my kids to know how to defend
I
themselves.
think we all do. I think it's just universal. But go ahead.
Yes,
go
but
ahead.
what I'm saying is, but we don't teach them that, because we stay in our box and we say, hey, no, we don't hit over here. Well, you better, because when you go to high school, somebody gonna hit you because you did something to them. So it has to be a balance. And again, that's just the way
Okay,
I do.
I like that. I like that. So to your point then, do you think, so to your point then, since we know we can't be with our kids 24/7, and they're
That's
not
right.
always going to be in the best schools or even
That's
in the
right.
best situations. Maybe
right.
your kid makes it through the entire 12th grade in the best of schools, but they're going to get in that world. They're going to get on that job. And they're going to run into, so to your point, teaching that balance, do you think there's some value? I'm just asking, do you think there is some value in teaching a kid then how to defend himself, how to take a
100%.
fucking punch? You know what I'm saying?
How to get
Jay,
yelled at.
so
Yes.
so again, we
I
kind of
taught
the
my
same.
listen. I am my kids' mental toughness. You know why? Because I yelled at them. So when the customer service person at Chick-fil-A yell at them, they're like, "So, my daddy do that."
Again, we're kind of grinding to some of the same things. Jay, you had something to say. Go ahead, my brother. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, no, I was agreeing with him, because that goes back to the whole coping mechanisms. And then it sounds like he's taking more of the old school traditional way of raising a parenting kids. Because there was a time when, if you got in trouble at school, when you got home, you got in trouble. If you went over to your friend's house and his mom or their dad called, when you got home, you might as well get ready. The whole neighborhood, you talk about the neighborhood and this parent,
right?
One, nowadays, you don't touch my child.
Right.
That's part of the problem, and I get it. It's a different generation. You have kids that are raising kids, which that's a whole nother conversation and issue in itself. But going back to Tasha's point, there were that I believe I agree with her. In times past, I do believe they got a little bit more of a right than we're doing today, and the numbers don't lie. That's my.
What numbers is it exactly that we're going off of? I think it's more of us now. So I think the numbers are
wow.
I'm not sure what numbers we're talking about, because when I look back, I think the old generation was. I think they created a lot of the parents that we have now that are creating traumas in their kids. They trusted all the neighbors and everybody to parent their kids, even though the uncles were screwing the kids when the mama went to work. There's a whole lot of crap going on that was irresponsible about folks back then that I don't want to bring back. I think we're more cognizant of how to protect our kids now.
So I want to ask a question on that. Do you think that the crimes that are committed in the past was committed more by the young generation? Let's put an age on it, 15 and under. You think it's equal to what we see in today's generation?
I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not sure.
But
I'd like to take
Black,
I like to take a poll. Does anybody on the panel think that when you look at the age group of 15 years and under, that the crime is the same or less than it or more than it was in previous generations? I'm curious. Does anybody think that it's equal? Raise your hand.
And I'm not even saying it's not bad, because if you look at the crop of parents right now, it, like Jay said, it is kids raising kids, and these are parents that don't have any skills, any of their own skills. They're all jacked up, trying to impart something into a whole new human being. So it's just like a cycle of crap. Nobody's teaching anybody anything.
I don't disagree with that part, but I'm lost that you're not making a correlation between there is a much greater incidence of crime, disrespect, and everything from today's generation, even considering all the advantages that they have.
But I don't
Now we
think
could dig into the weeds of why. But when we say the numbers truly don't lie.
I don't know. And if it is a disparity, I don't know if it's due to ass whooping or beatings rather.
That's another question. That's a different question. But when I say the numbers don't lie, statistically, there are a shitload more crimes being committed by youth in today's society than it ever was on the face of the planet. Now, if you want to say that's because there's more of us living, so by that logic, China and India should be run fucking amok.
Well, that's different cultures. They have different cultures than we have.
Every time I move the post, you move the post.
I mean, that's different culture. They don't parent the same way we parent our
But
kids.
I'm just saying, by that logic, if it's more of us,
and in the 50s,
it was saying the reason that them motherfuckers over there ought to be cutting each other's hands off.
But in the 50s, it was life and death. It ain't life and death there. Life and death being over the white person. You and your
Does
dad.
anybody believe that in 2023 it's not life and death in these streets?
Oh, it's most definitely life
anybody
and death.
believe that it's not? No, it's definitely life and death. It really is. But even to the point that was being made as far as the crime now, we don't even have to go back 5 years. In my city alone, it is crime for juvenile delinquents, and that is starting at age 8, is up over 150% from last year.
That's everybody or black folks?
This is everybody. Let's be very clear. This
black.
is crime amongst juveniles in the city.
It really is. You know what, Lamar? That's why one of the incidents the reason why I've never even introduced race into this conversation, because one of the incidents I mentioned from the very beginning was the Travis Scott incident. You know who those kids were who was trampling all those people? Those were primarily white kids. Race, it is, in all truthfulness, where 40 and up, we're still dealing with the antiquated methods of race and bigotry and segregation. That generation that's 20 and below, they're more alike than ever before. They eat the same shit. They listen to the same music. They dance together. They fuck each other. They're more like race doesn't factor in when you're talking about them young people. You can pull up TikTok video after TikTok video right now. You got the same fist fights you see black people doing. White girls are doing it. Mexicans are doing it. Asians, they're calling each other the word nigger, and they're not even black. It's real. Jay, I'm sorry. You got to jump in, partner. You sitting. I know you want to say something, but you got to jump in.
No, I'm just listening. I thought Devin was going to say something.
I was.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
I like what DJ said.
I got something to say.
DJ mentioned communication. I think that's a big part about it too. By the way.
Okay. You said DJ's comments. He says, "I think we're more like our parents than you think." Listening to Devin, parents all think they do everything correct and act accordingly. Communication is what's missing, respectively. And so I agree with a lot of that. I really do. But I like the first part he said as well. I think we're a lot more like our parents than we think. But go ahead, Devin and Jay. Did you have something?
Well, what I was going to say is now that my children are adults, as I look back, I think I realized where I messed up at with my children, each of them, to the point where I've even apologized to them for where I messed them up at, as far as they're kind of like me, where they're really cold and lack some things that I wish they had. But what I've explained to them is it's up to them to break that generational curse as they have their next children, because I feel like as they have a child and they have a child, they're all going to be raised differently, and it won't be the way that I raised them. So, like I told them, also, I get sick of these younger people using as an excuse things that they went through when they were raised by their parent. Like for my children to say today that they act this way or they do these things because you didn't hug me enough or you didn't tell me you loved me enough. And what I would explain to them is my dad told me he loved me every day. He hadn't bought me a sock one day in my damn life. So that didn't mean anything to me in my life. I felt like I needed to show them that I love them, but unfortunately I did it by making sure they didn't go through things that I went through. But I feel like these kids today, when you were saying they're worse today, they're more influenced by social norms and things like that than they are by their household. You know what I'm saying? Because if anybody was to say that things my children did were a reflection of me, maybe it was. But I didn't drink till I was almost 40. I didn't have my first drink of alcohol. I had them in church. I didn't party. I didn't do all these things. But if they turned out doing these things, I would get annoyed when someone say it was because of something I didn't do. Like if my kids were sneaking and smoking cigarettes, they could say it's my fault. They weren't exposed to that. That's not the way that I was. I feel like your children today are more raised by outside influences than their parents. They spend more time with people on the outside of you, outside of the house and school and social media than they do with their own parents. So I think we have to look at that as well. But they need to, as generations go on, as they do things differently, I'm saying hopefully those do things differently and
which
back like
leads
it was
to my next topic, finding the right groove, because I think that the panel is accurate. There's no right answers, just as I'm staunch in my views. I'm not saying I'm right. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm an opinionated son of a bitch, and I stand by it. So I do think we don't want to just do this whole show without trying to come up with some solutions. So I do want to talk about finding the right groove, because I do agree this generation is facing their own unique set of circumstances. And so what is the answer? But Jay, I want to let you go as you go. But one little thing I want to add, what you said to Devin, we grew up with a mother who wasn't affectionate. I have no recollection. Of my mother saying, I love you. None. I don't know what a father is. The closest thing I have to a father figure, that man sitting down there, Jay, his father is the closest thing I know of a father figure. I have no concept whatsoever what a grandmother is. We grew up, we were told to call our grandmother Ain't Toot, and so I have no idea. Growing up and being in school and holiday time, and they would sing that song, over the river and through the woods to grandmama's house we go. I don't know what the fuck they talking about. I don't even know what that means. Sitting on a man's lap and somebody teaching me how to play ball and all that. I have no fucking idea what that means. Don't know what a father figure is. I was introduced to his father. I was 17 years old. The only times that I can recollect, and I'm 55 years old, of my own mother actually like affectionately touching me, I had the flu. I was sick. That's when you get Vicks Vapor Rub rubbed on your chest and on your head. But I can sit here and tell you this. I know undeniably with every fiber of my being, my mother loved the shit out of me. It wasn't her way to say it. You know what I'm saying? I felt loved. I felt safe. I felt protected. And so you're right, And so this is why I want to say finding that right groove. We've got to figure out a way, though, because the rate we're going, it's running amok. And so to Devin's point, if we know better and we do better and we want, but the answer cannot be to continue to let shit just happen arbitrarily, and hope for the fucking best. Jay, I'm sorry. I know I've stepped on your point many times, bro.
Good. No, everybody made some really good points, and this is educational, for lack of a better word, because it is challenging. As Devin pointed out, you just there's no handbook. You do the best you know how. You draw on what your parents did. But the one thing I probably would say is that, society is what it is, and it's definitely going in the wrong direction. But someone said something earlier about we're all in our own silos, and everybody's like, you know what? As long as they're not bothering me, I'm going to stay over here. And I think that's a contributing factor also. Now, I may talk to a young man, and he may not receive it from me, but Lee may talk to him, and he may listen and understand, or Kendrick, or Brenton, or Lamar. But we have to do more of that. Women are really good about supporting their own. I think we got to do a better job as men, particularly black men.
Wow, really good.
But, we need to step in when we can step in, and talk to these young people, because a lot of them, they're looking for that father figure. They are influenced by social media, TikTok, this, that, and that's not real. That virtual world, that's not real. And then they get out there in the real world, and then they end up being a statistic.
But Jay, I'm gonna jump in and say something. I'm gonna dip right out real quick. If the ladies won't let us in, we can't help them.
That's you preaching on that one. But and that's why I made the comment. They may not receive it from me or you, but Tasha may be able to talk to that person and bring some value and some understanding, some clarity, and maybe give that person a different perspective. My wife is saying something in the background. But you come on the camera while you sit there talking and walking away.
Sherry, you had a thought? Go ahead, sis. Hold on, let me take you off mute, sis. The big dog got something to say.
I said I just wanted to tell a panel, we came from the same household, and I got all the beatings. He never got beat.
That's not. It's not. I never get beat. That's not true. I didn't get beat as much as your wicked ass, but I got beat.
But listen.
Now, no. If you're gonna tell it right.
Okay.
Why did I get beat? No. So, because don't give these people no false impression that I didn't get no ass beatings. Tell the honest truth. When I got ass beatings, why did I get ass beatings?
Yeah, because of me. But I'm saying,
don't send a false message out here that I didn't get beat.
Wait, yeah, because I would get him out, and he got beat because of me. He didn't get no beatings like me.
Now, where I was smarter than her was, I went first.
Beat us, when she would come to the door to go and beat us, I would actually push him up in front of me so he can get all the beatings, and I was
But see, here's where I was smarter. She right. I took my licks first, but my mother was a special kind of whooper. Her energy got stronger the more she hit. So yeah, I might take the first initial licks and shit, but I also got a chance to run in the room and put on some extra clothes and put some books in my ass and stuff like that. Because when she was coming back with the extension cord, I was padded, and that ass got tore up out the frame.
Right. So listen. So I got beat a lot. I can say that because I wanted to be outside. He wasn't really outside, but as we grew up, you was more out and doing stuff than me.
Yeah. And so again, it speaks to how, again, you can come from the same household and impacts you differently. But again, I don't think you or I felt unloved, and we appreciated it. And okay, I'm coming to the end of the show, and I truly thank you guys for coming. And I just want you to, again, this wasn't meant to come up with answers. It really wasn't. It was meant to just put the conversation out there on the table. And I'm glad that we have so many different faces of what parenting and discipline looks like, because nobody's even having this fucking conversation, and they're just doing their own thing. So I appreciate the views and the value you all bring to it. And because we are dealing with some unique situations, and I look at Lamar, who's got a young child. I look at Brenton, who's got a young child. You know what I'm saying? For some of us, the kids are all grown. But when you look at some of these areas, I just want you to ask yourself, whatever parenting style you adopt, and again, if it's working, fantastic. But I want you to think about, the correlation between whatever that parenting style is and these areas. Is it going to inspire more respect for you as a parent long term? Respect for authority, because as I said before, Nobody's going to love your kid like you're going to love them. Is it going to make that young person more self-sufficient to be able to stand on their own 2 feet? How does it impact their work ethic? Because you can't be there for them always. Are we raising kids that's going to be dependent or independent? Because kids are staying home a much longer times and that work value is suffering. I see June turn. What about the ability to cope? We talked about that. They're dying. Kids are killing themselves. What about their overall mental, emotional, spiritual stability? Are we raising young people to be able to cope with what's coming next, folks? And I'm going to end it on this thought. And this will blow your mind. This might even inspire a part 2 to this conversation. Maybe somebody else can have it. I called it, let's keep it all the way real. Despite public opposition to spanking, a survey conducted by the Harris Poll in 2013 discovered that 81% of Americans privately support spanking children. The poll found that older generations are more accepting of spanking, with 88% of mature parents, 85% of baby boomers, 82% of Gen X parents, and 72% of millennial parents approving of corporal punishment. And the reason why I wanted to end on that note, we still live in a society where it's so politically correct to say all of the right things. And it sounds so great about the gentle parenting and we do this and we do that. But you know what? Behind closed doors, the numbers again tell the truth. That tried and true, sometimes a good old-fashioned ass whooping is what some of these kids need. And I stand by those numbers. I
Be
want to
very
thank
afraid,
everybody.
DJ.
I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight and for spending a little bit of your time with us. I truly appreciate you guys, and I love you for being as authentic and real as you could be. And I hope there's some value in this. This is not about being right. This is about, because you know what I love about having a panel like this? When I'm taking my shower, I'm going to think about some things you shared with me so it can evolve me to be a better person and evolve my views. So I thank you guys. I appreciate you. I love you. And I want you to enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, this has been live. This has been raw. And it's been real talk. God bless.
Okay, bye.